Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Seth the Programmer, and today we are checking out his video called Ranking the Captains from Weakest to Strongest. So we're checking out the captains from Bleach, I do believe. That's what the thumbnail implies. If we're going from the entirety of Bleach, I feel like Kenpachi is going to be quite high up there. But again, I don't know if he's doing like certain like you get like what was it? Chuck did that video where it was Omni-Man versus Goku, but then he did like Goku from a certain thing to make it. So we'll just go into it. We'll see, and yeah, be interesting to see where he ranks the captains.
Hello everyone, it's your host Swag Kage today, and we're going to be talking about Bleach like I usually do on my alternate YouTube accounts, Clyde and Chuck.
Nice.
This video in particular will be going over the 13 captains up until the end of Aizen's defeat by Mugetsu Ichigo.
Nice.
I decided on this in particular because these are the OG 13 captains that most people
Kenpachi
like and care
isn't
about,
as high up then as I would put him.
particularly scaled. However, if you guys do want me to go until the end of the series,
oh, do that. Go on, because everyone gets such a big boost.
Some captains do have scaling to their war arc of battles like Yamamoto or Unohana, but this will only be scaling that applies to them during the Aizen arc still. It's just more clarification of what they should be able to do during this time, since they don't really get any stronger, and sometimes they don't have enough feats during the Aizen arc to actually scale them that well. Also, before we start, subscribe to my channel. Seriously, I'm tired of this 700 through 800k. Let's get 1 million already.
Let's do
it's been enough time.
Subscribe to
also,
Seth's
you can
channel.
Follow me on Twitter and Twitch as well. And I will say, and most Bleach fans will agree, that making this type of video, it's rough to say the least.
Yeah.
There are so many ways to interpret these characters, how their hacks will affect
their
each
abilities
other and so on.
And that, and it's like,
but
wait.
for the sake of this video, we will be mainly doing raw power scaling only,
Sweet.
and not any headcanony who would win type questions. It's very likely that some lower on this list could be
the
someone
Bleach
higher.
coloring book
Take,
will not be
someone
used.
like Mayuri, who despite not being the
Fair
most
enough.
powerful captain, can certainly take down guys stronger than him with his poisons, tricks, and so on. Regardless, there is also no way to order this list to make everyone happy, and I'm not even joking with that. So if you're a Bleach fan, leave a like just to promote the series, and just agree to disagree maybe in advance, but otherwise, I think that made a pretty agreeable list for most people when I break it down to them.
Awesome.
Number 13, right off the bat, is a contentious placement, Toshiro Hitsugaya.
I would
Considering
agree
this is
with
only
that, though.
the Aizen arc, Toshiro doesn't have a whole lot to say. He's really stronger than anybody else.
Yeah,
which
he
I'll
doesn't
get
really
into as we
offer
go
a
down
lot of
later.
like powerhousey stuff.
Toshiro's biggest accomplishment at this point in the story is throwing hands quite well with the spot of number 3 and future overlord of Hueco Mundo, Haribel. But otherwise, pretty much every other captain during the Aizen clash said Mayuri fights someone stronger than Haribel, and Shunsui thinks it'll take Toshiro 100 years to surpass his level. For those of you that do like Toshiro, Toshiro does get a massive amp in the war arc that greatly increases his placement. So if you want to see some Toshiro hype, just let me know if you want a
see
part
the future
2
one.
down
This would be
below in the comments.
really cool to compare the two
Number
videos
12,
at the end as well.
Soifon. Soifon is a great example of someone who just directly fights a stronger Espada than Toshiro, Espada number 2 Barragan, and Soifon is considered by her assistant Captain Omaida to be the fastest captain in the Gotei 13, and with her Zanpakuto Suzumebachi, she can utilize an ability where she can kill you by tapping you in the same place twice, called Igeki Kisatsu. And while Omaida probably doesn't know enough about the other captains to make a statement that concrete, and is directly contradicted by certain statements that we'll go over later, hell, even the Quincy's and Aizen don't know all the captain's abilities, it's safe to say that this is mainly a hacks and not power scaling. So how does Soifon scale above Toshiro? Well, with her Bankai ability that's a complete 180 from her Shikai, Jakuho Raikuben, this massive missile she can fire can even damage Barragan pretty well.
So that's some
even
power.
After its explosions potentially nerfed by Barragan's Respira ability that withers all things around it, and even possibly slow down time. Due to this and the way higher spiritual pressure and Espada tend to work in Bleach, it's very likely that Soifon's Bankai powers surpass that of Toshiro's, which even slightly phase the Primera Espada Stark. And I can see arguments for both, but I do think that Soifon is pretty directly shown to be slightly stronger due to her Bankai being shown to actually severely damage Barragan. if it hits through Baragon's Respira, or his Respira doesn't have enough time to negate all its damage. Number 11, Kamamura Sajin. This is someone I think most people would honestly rank at the bottom, and I agree that he does seem that way when you're just casually watching the series. However, he just makes a giant anime, which I'm not giving him an exception for, but it helps me kind of explain what I'm going to get into that is canon here in a second.
These three are definitely the three I would put in the bottom three, though.
Kaname Tousen explains his amps that Aizen gave him, in which Tousen is granted his own ability that is beyond Bankai. Tousen was already strong enough to threaten Baragon before either were amped by Aizen, and Aizen trusted him enough to be one of his right-hand men in lording over the Espada with Gin. But in the anime, it goes directly a step further with Tousen, directly stating he is stronger than any of the Espada, and nobody disagrees with him despite the fact that Haribel, Baragon, and Stark are fighting almost right next to him. Kamamura, despite not winning against Tousen, technically fights someone stronger and clashes against someone stronger than Toshiro and Soifon. However, if you disregard the anime, like I said, it might be very likely that Kamamura could be the weakest. However, most people would agree that Tousen is definitely narratively hyped up to be above the Espada anyway.
Right.
Something that supports this is that Aizen says to Haribel that the Espada were not worthy of fighting under him anyway, due to their performance against the captains.
Then asks Gin and Tousen to follow him,
implying they are more worthy than the Espada. Tousen also comments that due to Kamamura's massive destructive power, that he couldn't imagine anybody surviving a swing from his Bankai and counterattacking, which Tousen mocks him for thinking. This is filler only, but in filler, we actually see Kamamura fight Soifon, and it is stated that even with her Shikai, she doesn't have the destructive force to defeat Kamamura in his base form, and Kamamura dominates her until she unleashes her Shunko technique she's been hiding and didn't even use on Baragon. And then, when both are so tired they can barely stand, Soifon, with a possible Shunko-amped Bankai, unleashes on Kamamura and it does 0 damage to him. Kamamura and Soifon then pass out from fatigue, Kamamura in particular passing out after Soifon, even though he had to tank her Bankai's explosion, and Kamamura didn't even touch her in the final clash. Once again, not saying this is canon or objective information, but something that sort of supports what I'm implying with Tousen's narrative above the Espada, and that the series kind of supports it. Number 10 is therefore Kaname Tousen. Tousen, while being damaged by Kamamura in his holified state, can then use Resurrection, which is something similar to an increase as a Bankai on top of his holification as a Captain-class Soul Reaper that Aizen's considered is worthy of fighting under him, whereas the top 3 Espada are not. Once again, without the anime, this is more subjective, but I do think it's very easy to digest that Tousen is being implied to be a right-hand general to Aizen above the Espada underlings, and the story is progressively powering up the adversaries that the captains have to fight. One thing I'll especially say for Kamamura here is that when Tousen goes all out, Tousen gets folded extremely easily, so if you believe that he doesn't have enough merit to be above Toshiro or Soifon, I actually wouldn't even fully disagree. It also depends on if Aizen and Tousen feel they are above the Espada with holification, or if it requires Tousen's full resurrection. So feel free to consider Toshiro, Soifon, and Kamamura almost like an interchangeable category.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, it depends on stuff.
Based on your interpretation. With Tousen more than likely above them and the Espada entirely. When I say above the Espada, however, this can only apply to the Espada powers that Aizen and Tousen for sure know about. Second Resurrection or Anger amped Yami Ukiura might be off of the table for the statement, which I'll get into for the next 2 on the list. Number 9, Byakuya Kuchiki, and number 8,
they're
Kenpachi and
very
Byakuya.
close, my god.
These 2 are here because of their fight against Yami, also known as Espada Zero. Not only does Byakuya have the speed to match any Espada, as shown with his fight with Zamari, who has the fastest Sonito of any Espada, but he is also shown being able to cut up Yami, who has the second hardest skin of any Espada, and is applied to be able to survive attacks from him, despite him being the most powerful in terms of his raw punching power and implied insanely high attack potency. Aizen labeled him the Zero Espada for a reason. So Kenpachi and Byakuya fighting him should mean they should logically devour the Espada. Baragon is weird though because of hacks, but in terms of raw power, yes. The reason they're above Tousen is more debatable, but I'll say this is another situation where they could all be interchangeable. Yami is the strongest Espada for the most part, and even Ichigo implies that Yami might actually be even after facing second release Resurrection Ukiura. But something interesting is that Yami actually grows and ascends past this state. Now, we aren't sure if it's simply his anger ability or Yami's own second Resurrection, but then, regardless, Yami ascends past the state of being the strongest entirely, unless you think Ukiura is somehow stronger still. If this is his second release, it implies a massive power-up that we can't really say Tousen is above, because Yami might have only unlocked that mid-fight for all we know. The reason second release is so impressive is because a first Resurrection release of an Espada is actually implied to be their Shikai release in the data books, yet its power rivals that of a Shinigami's Bankai, with their second Resurrection being their possible own version of Bankai. It's only up to the imagination how insane of a multiplier it might be, especially with Ukiura's alien-like sea of spiritual pressure that baffled even Uryu. Now, whether Yami is actually in a different league than Ukiura is up for debate, and maybe Ichigo wasn't 100% sure when he made the statement that Yami could possibly be stronger than Ukiura, but defeating him is much more than Kamamura, Soifon, and Toshiro have definitely done. I put Kenpachi above Byakuya here because it's implied Kenpachi is rivaling Byakuya without even using his two-handed kendo strikes that, in his own words,
it's weird as well because like Kenpachi, I would say if he did future stuff, Kenpachi would be higher on this list.
A ton stronger. In fact, it's arguable he's the strongest in the whole Gote, and even Central 46 and Aizen are wary of him. However, as of the Aizen arc, Kenpachi is so massively suppressed that he only ranks 8th. If you want to see what it's like when Kenpachi is unrestricted, then you'll have to ask for the War Arc video.
I want it.
Number 7, Mayuri Kurotsuchi. So, I think this one will be the weirdest for people to grasp, and I don't blame you since I said this video is power scaling oriented, but it's a little unfair for Mayuri, whose literal Bankai ability is poison, but even in just raw power scaling sense, he is still in the middle, give or take. Mayuri is one of those characters that can just blatantly beat people stronger than him, and in fact, he literally does it in the Soul Society arc in his fight with Uryu, many times throughout the War arc. However, many don't understand that he's still quite impressive, and is a War arc level character pretty much from the Soul Society arc he's introduced in. Whereas all the other captains and maybe a few get stronger up until the Aizen battle under Yamamoto's instruction. Mayuri, as many of you know, faces Uryu during the Soul Society arc. Despite this battle, Uryu is using the Sandray glove,
which allows Uryu
to use his Lech Steel Quincy evolution, somewhat like a Quincy version of Bankai, give or take. However, what people don't know, and this is stated in the manga and every data book that mentions it, is that the Sandray glove not only gives you Lech Steel, but brings you to the peak of your potential as a Quincy in terms of power, and then gives you beyond Quincy level power. Meaning any potential he showed later in the series, said maybe his shrift granted him by Yuha later, would be beneath the Sandray glove in terms of raw power. Uryu being able to fight Hashbald for an entire night with Almighty, and then fight him briefly during the day, despite the fact that Hashbald can fight a post-battle Wolverine Bankai Ichigo, then snap his Bankai in 2 with 1 slash. It then takes Lech Steel Sandray Uryu to put down Mayuri's Bankai, and he uses his full power to do it to the point where he's exhausted. Mayuri then states in his fight versus Toshiro as a zombie during the war, and implies very heavily that he has not trained or grown any stronger, and simply modified his gear with certain gadgets. This means that his sword clashing with Toshiro and being strong enough to withstand an attack from War Arc, post-training prodigy Toshiro, is within Aizen arc Mayuri's pay grade. Although it is stated that his reaction speed is being amped in the zombie Toshiro fight. He then faces Pernida, a being who at first swaps almost lethal blows with post-training Kenpachi and is a possible arm of the Soul King, and then is able to dodge attacks from an evolved Pernida that is even stronger than the one that pretty much dealt with Kenpachi's arm. This, alongside the fact it's a bit disingenuous to say that Mayuri can't poison with his Bankai even in these fights, is just a bit unfair, but he might not even need them. Mayuri can also paralyze Kenpachi with this just as Shikai as well, despite Kenpachi's massive full power War Arc amps. Although it's base off-guard Kenpachi, this Kenpachi would easily annihilate the one during the Yami fight, which is why I'd put Mayuri at 7.
Right.
I think he's very underrated in terms of power and especially speed, and as a Kubo favorite, it makes sense he's a bit absurd, and pretty much every fight, say Uryu's Ledge Steel and Per Night at the end of Bleach, he doesn't even try in and just wants to test out numerous
Yeah, he's like, I'm just gonna see how this works, crazy.
Number 6, Jushiro Ukitake, and number 5, Shunsui Kyoraku.
Mate, why
the reason I have Shunsui
there?
above Ukitake is that while it's implied that Shunsui and Ukitake are relative, it is also implied Shunsui has better stamina and attributes that would allow him to win an extended fight against Ukitake. I know it's a little bit
You need to explain why they're not.
To kind of imply that, or even mention stamina on a power scaling list, but I think it's pretty fair considering they're pretty much as equals, and that's the only difference, and if I had to choose one. They both also do about the same against Yamamoto, and them combining their powers together is something Yamamoto considered transcendent. The databooks often describe them as peerless, even to their predecessors, and Shunsui says it will take Hitsugaya, a prodigy captain, 100 years to ever surpass him.
Damn.
Ukitake has also stated that if he was not withholding Mimahagi within his body, he would have had more spiritual pressure than any captain alive at the moment. However, due to him withholding it during the Aizen arc, he would not be any stronger. The reason Shunsui is above Mayuri is that it is heavily implied Shunsui does not get much stronger since the beatdown from base Aizen and the War Arc.
Damn.
And he himself states that he hasn't talked to his Zanpakuto in a very long time.
Ignorance.
He hasn't done any meditation or any serious training that we know of, and if anything, it's just shown that Shunsui is a very laid-back and lazy person.
He's very chilled.
When
yeah.
invaders were in the Soul Society during the Soul Society arc,
Let's have some
etc.
sake.
During the War Arc, when Shunsui finally unleashes his Bankai on the undisputed leader of the SS, Lilibaro, everyone in the battlefield gets chills and most people don't even know what's happening, with only Ichigo stating he senses Shunsui's spiritual pressure. The Bankai is very reminiscent of Yamamoto's introduction, but rather than heat, everyone feels the chills.
Cold, yeah.
Both War Arc Ichigo and Askin Nuclear are shocked at the power Shunsui displays, and his ability to dominate Lilibaro in his full standing before his final evolution is more impressive than Mayuri's losing battle against Pernida. Due to many not even being able to sense Shunsui's spiritual pressure and Bankai and being confused, there's even a possible argument that he's borderline transcendent in this state, but that is up for debate.
Yeah.
Number 4, Gin Ichimaru.
Oh,
this placement is definitely contentious because Gin is a very weird and nuanced character.
Yeah, but he
only shows
thought he could actually take Aizen down.
Aizen down, on an off-guard Aizen. But even then, we do have some things to go off of to know what his true power actually is.
Like, if he thought he could actually pull it off.
Many people don't know, but Gin is actually a prodigy, but not just a prodigy like Hitsugaya. In fact, Gin is stated to be an unparalleled prodigy in the databooks, meaning his prodigious ability for being a Soul Reaper surpasses even the likes of Aizen, Shunsui, Hitsugaya, and so forth.
Jeez.
If you interpret this as Gin is an unparalleled prodigy that surpasses even Kenpachi Zaraki, then Gin would actually be even higher on this list, if anything, and I'll explain where he could go. But for what we do know, Gin fights post-Ukiura fight Ichigo in his Bankai state, with Ichigo being somewhat
if we're doing OG like
conflicted.
13 captains, then
this
isn't
Ichigo
Aizen on this
even
list
then
then?
rivals Unohana's base with only less than half of his Bankai's power. Unohana being able to no-div Kenpachi, make him stronger numerous times without even using her Shikai, and post this arc after Kenpachi is only stronger to begin with. Ichigo, when he has his full Bankai Shihakusho, is actually able to perceive Aizen appearing before all of them at the same speed as Isshin and Urahara, while he is nerfed. Urahara and Isshin both being strong enough to give base or Shikai Aizen a good fight to the point he respects them. Then Ichigo unleashes his Hollow Mask, and Gin still folds him with absolutely zero difficulty, and in fact Gin's Shikai and fake Bankai ability straight up blitz Ichigo to the point he can't actually even see them retract.
Doesn't know what's happening,
Gin also has an interesting narrative where, like Aizen, he's lied to everyone about his ability, so nobody knows how strong he is or
what he can actually do.
As an unparalleled prodigy, this makes sense, and Gin has basically spent hundreds of years getting ready to take down Aizen, and despite the fact he thinks that no other captain can, and neither can Ishii and Unohana or Yoriichi together.
Yeah. So like, to be able to believe he could do that.
With his Bankai, even when Aizen has transcended Hollows and Shinigamis entirely, not once, but twice. His Bankai evaporates Transcended Aizen, and Aizen actually fears for his life to the point that he evolves and can't fight back against Gin's Bankai poison, despite earlier saying he could negate Soul Reaper hacks with his spiritual pressure, which is also stated in the Bleach novels as confirmation. So for Gin to be an unparalleled prodigy,
I felt so sorry for him when
Aizen and Hitsugaya, and then have hundreds of years under his belt with Shunsui thinking Hitsugaya would surpass him in 100 years, it isn't unlikely for Gin to be this high, and if anything, you might be able to make an argument he could be even higher. And the only reason we can't say he's all that insane is because he himself implies he is weaker than Aizen before the Hogyoku merger while talking to himself, and thus not making up a character or a lie. Number 3, Retsu Unohana,
yeah, she's definitely up there. Jesus.
So if you think Gin is a prodigy above Kenpachi, then Gin would be above this, as Kenpachi defeated Unohana when he was just a child, before his subconscious suppression of himself. However, the prodigy statement could just be referring to those that trained or came up through the ranks via schooling or an orthodox way, which would apply to Aizen and Hitsugaya, but Kenpachi never went through the ranks or schooling. He just killed the previous false Kenpachi to become a captain.
Did it, just like boom.
Unohana herself states that she is stronger than anybody else during the war after Yamamoto's death, including the likes of all the Zero Division members she knows the abilities of, Shunsui, Ishin, and so forth. She is also the true Kenpachi and was the strongest Soul Reaper over 1,000 years ago, and retired when she felt conflicted, continuing to fight after what she did to Kenpachi's psyche. The true strongest Shinigami. After Kenpachi defeats Unohana, there are good arguments that Kenpachi reached a transcendent level of spiritual pressure and couldn't be sensed by anyone as he approached Stern Ritter member Gremmy until he allowed them to sense him, meaning it probably required that level of power for Kenpachi to finally defeat her. Unohana also then thinks she is more powerful than Fullbringer Ichigo, and possibly even the Yuha that defeated Kenpachi before. Shunsui also makes it pretty obvious he thinks she's stronger than him.
She
Number
is
2,
up there.
Genryusai Yamamoto. Yamamoto is
like I said, Aizen's on the list, isn't he? So Aizen's going to be number 1.
Of all Zanpakuto.
He is something
in the
else.
Even without his sword, he has the best hand-to-hand ability. Is the
heat
fastest,
he can create
has
is
the largest mastery of
crazy.
Kido, on top of having the strongest sword. The anime states that he has been the strongest Soul Reaper for the past 1,000 years, with the databook saying nobody has surpassed him in the last 1,000 years, which would include Gin and Aizen. And the databook actually implies that even without his Zanpakuto, that Aizen was no threat to him. He defeated Yuha 1,000 years ago, the leader of the Quincy, and has a Bankai so powerful that Haschwald, a fighter that can no-diff full-bring Bankai Ichigo, can't even sense or perceive its true power or form, making it arguably transcendent.
Yeah.
Shunsui in the novels also compares Yamamoto's spiritual pressure as a similar upper class, more similar to Aizen after his battle with Ichigo in fusion with his Zanpakuto, than the likes of Yoriichi or End of War Arc Byakuya, who has insane feats against Gerard Valkyrie and trained with the Zero Division. He is also stated to be the strongest of the Gotei 13, even while only having 1 arm and 13 blades, which arguably halved his sword-striking power, and despite Unohana being among the Gotei 13. The arguments for Unohana being stronger than Yamamoto are there, however they seem to fall apart as something more akin to our opinion, as not even Aizen could actually register Yamamoto's true power, let alone a 1,000-year battle withdrawn and aloof Unohana that the databook states would be incorrect. However, Unohana could simply just not be correct, and her statement of being stronger than anybody but Kenpachi is right, since it was stated after Yamamoto's death. For those that don't remember, Aizen thought Wonderwise could actually take down Yamamoto without losing
he was created to do that.
Aizen is then shocked to learn that Yamamoto could not only take down Wonderwise with his bare hands, but could then even tank the full Ryujin Jaka traps and explosions that were going to kill every captain in the town alongside Aizen, and Yamamoto is the only person Aizen ever seems to concede inferiority to, despite the fact that he more than likely has knowledge on Unohana, just as Shunsui does, if not an even more in-depth knowledge. Yamamoto and Kenpachi are the only 2 he takes any remote precautions for. Number 1, Sosuke Aizen.
There you go, yeah.
The earlier statements concerning Aizen were about him in his pre-Hogyoku state, but after his evolution, there is no captain that can take him down. In fact, after his evolution, it's stated that if Ichigo doesn't take him down, Aizen wins, meaning he basically solo stomps the Zero Division that surpasses the Gotei 13 by himself in a hypothetical future where he beats Ichigo. Even if someone were to heavily damage him, like Gin or maybe Yamamoto's Bankai catches him by surprise, he can easily regenerate, adapt, and grow stronger.
And then just evolve
and nobody,
again,
even in the War Arc, has the capability of killing him for good, hence why he is sealed in the Mukin
He's just
forever.
Trapped there, yeah.
The main argument for Aizen is actually more so pre-Hogyoku Aizen versus Yamamoto versus Unohana, in which I think the order would go Unohana as third, Aizen as second, and Yamamoto as number one. But it's all very subjective and debatable. But I think we can all agree that
really
Hogyoku Aizen is at the top, and
so
there's a
close.
reason Yamamoto shows a visible concern when Yuha says he went to go meet him in the Mukin during the War Arc. Anyways, guys, that is my ranking of the 13 captains during their most famous
Decent
arcs.
List.
I could go over the War Arc.
Please do it, that'd be sick.
If you did like, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and show support so I can see that you might want that. And other than that, I would love to hear what your guys' opinions are on the captain's ranking. Like I said, a lot of it is interpretation-based. Kubo is a very subtle, nuanced man. He likes to leave a lot of room for argument. So, I'm not going to say I made an objective list, but I think I made a pretty good one.
Yeah, it was alright, it was cool.
Other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time.
Sorry if I've been looking away, like the dog I'm looking after, like she's getting so annoyed that she ain't getting attention that she's just sitting over here being all grumpy face. And let me see if I can get the camera to show you. She's just sitting there like, where are you talking to me? You know, I'm just like, okay. You know what I mean? But that was a good list. That was good. At times I was like, oh, why? But then again, he had the explanations, and they were quite close. He did also explain like when, you know, it's difficult. But I think it's easier when it gets to like the 1,000 Year Blood War arc in ranking these. So I'd like to see how he ranks them after the fact. That'd be really cool. So yeah, anyway, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, a link in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all that helps support the channel. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you guys for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, and leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch, discuss in future videos, and I'll see you guys. See you guys next time.